and welcome to Keep It Real. We are presented by Edwards Auto Group, and Avery and I decided not to hang out in the heat all day. Jack, how are you feeling out there?
Here's the deal. Representing the Hurrdat brand these last week and a half has been one of the honors of my lifetime. So if you didn't think I wasn't coming to the activation center, not because I couldn't get my Wi-Fi to work, not because I have golden retriever energy and was all over the city of Omaha, but because I needed to come hang out with you awesome people, that is Hurrdat Nation. So, yeah, it feels lovely out here.
What an intro. You just saved our intro.
Thank you, Jack. 100 degrees in Omaha, Nebraska, 42 mile-per-hour wind gusts. Can you feel those gusts out there, Jack?
The problem is my back is to Charles Schwab Field right now. With the wind hitting me directly in the face right now, I want to give you my best weather forecast prediction, but
let's hear it.
Bad day. Bad day to be a hitter. Fantastic day to be a pitcher here in the great state of Nebraska.
All right, well, let's get into our preview. Game 1 of the finals, Coastal Carolina, LSU, on tap at 6 p.m. here at Charles Schwab. Let's start first, though, on how these teams got here, including their run at the College World Series. Let's start with Coastal and the streak that they've been on, guys.
Yeah, I don't know, Jack, about you, but I think it's been really interesting to see how everything that this team did during the season translated directly to Omaha. If there are any questions from anyone at all, I think they probably squashed all of those doubts. I know that this was a team that didn't doubt themselves by any means, but to see this energy and that confidence on this big stage, I think it's been impressive. It's been entertaining as someone who hasn't followed them all season long until, some of the postseason. I know you're a little bit closer to them, but what's been the most impressive thing for you? I know for me, it's just been interesting to watch this team truly translate everything they did in the season here in Omaha.
Yeah, I mean, I think even when you watch some of their players take podium, right? They have taken on the representation and the embodiment of their head coach. Kevin Schnall is a very intense dude. There's no hiding around that fact. But what's really fun about it is there's a lot of coach cliche, but they live it. I thought something was really interesting in their little hype reel getting ready today. A hyper-focused intensity on dominating their daily plan. And that's it, right? Let's be very good at all the very small details, which every single one of us who's ever played a sport has heard a coach say that.
Yeah.
But what's different about them is they live it. They're not the most talented team in the country, but they are one of the very best teams. And it's why they're one of two standing, because they play so well together. They have not lost an ounce of that. They don't come into this thing expecting just and happy to be here. They want to win it. They're helping set a standard. And I think it's why a guy like Kevin Schnall in his first year as a head coach, not just the first year as a head coach at Coastal Carolina, first year as a head coach in his life, is now coaching for a national championship, man. It's a hell of a testament to what he and his staff have been able to build this year.
I think to expand on that too, Jack, maybe your thoughts on this, but it's one thing to say, we're not a Cinderella or this is who we are, but what does it say about the coaching staff that this team wholeheartedly believes everything that they say? There's not just a front about them. What the coaching staff says, this team, like you said, they live it. What does that tell you about the leadership of this staff as a whole and the fact that they've said these things all season long, that when they're here, this is just the makeup and the identity. It's not just here's our little, slogan. This is truly what we are.
You hit the nail on it right there. I'm going to throw us a 3-0 breaking ball, but I promise I'm going to land the plane here.
Let's see it.
The Detroit Pistons Bad Boy documentary, the 60 E60, is one of my favorite docs ever put together. And the entire premise is about how every great team has an identity. So to your point, Avery, it's what culture's really easy when you're winning. And it's awesome to put on a shirt and on a poster in the wall. But it's another to live it and to walk it and to talk it. So a guy like Matt Williams, who just came from South Carolina, understands what it's like to coach at an SEC school, to expect to win a national championship where fans are going to be beside themselves. You bring in a guy for the first time in his life back in a dugout, a guy like Connor Owings, who the last time he was in a dugout at Coastal Carolina, he was playing for a national championship in 2016. Now his first year as a coach, he's back here and ready to do it again. It's not an accident that these type of dudes that are all blended together from a staff perspective are able to make this magical run. All of them so integral in what goes into this recipe that is one of the better teams that we've seen really in the last decade from a mid. I think that's the other. You have to have guys that don't view themselves as a mid-major, that aren't oh, pity poor us. The LSU's got 10 times the more resources. Their ballpark is called the Palace for a reason. They've got a beautiful setup, but it's not comparable to an SEC budget, and they don't give a damn. And that's what's really cool about this ball club.
I think one thing that was really interesting that Schnall said yesterday in the press conference was to what you were alluding to, Jack. We have to win batting practice. We have to win our ground balls. We have to win every pitch. And it is like totally coach speak, but I think to Averie's point too, like when Schnall says something, you believe it. And he has this aura about him and this, I don't know, this attitude about him that I think a lot of guys love to play for. But like you said, Jack, like this team just doesn't care what other people think. Do you get that vibe from them too of they just want to go out and prove, hey, we aren't a Cinderella. You're going to know coastal baseball. And like Coach Schnall said, another championship, 2 in 9 years, that would put this team on a different thing.
I think they enjoy it. I think they legitimately revel in hope people talk poorly about them. Like the bulletin board material, like they're tattooing it to their own foreheads, right? And a guy like Caden Bodine, and I think Anna, or maybe as you, Avery, Caden Bodine is a bona fide big leaguer. Like he's going to play professional baseball for the next 20 years. Yeah. He is a dog. When your leader and superstar is deferring to his teammates and getting upset with his own SID from being like, hey, I'm getting too much media. Like Ty Dooley was unbelievable today. Blake Barthol is one of the best second basemen in the country. Like it's time for them to start receiving the love.
Yes.
When your leader is representing that, it becomes a lot easier for everything to fall in place behind him.
Mm-hmm. Moving over to that LSU side, I think it's just ingrained in that Tiger blood that they belong in these big moments. Do you feel that sense too of like this LSU team where maybe it wasn't the most talent that they've had in years past, but they get to this moment because they are LSU, they are this brand, and it's been ingrained in that culture from day one?
I'm currently staring at Mardi Gras Mike right now. When you come locked and loaded with a mascot of this size and magnitude,
you have to.
There is only playing for national championships.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot about Kevin Schnall, but what Jay Johnson is now kind of weighing on his shoulders. Like this guy's a winner. He lives this, he breathes this, he sleeps this. He says one of his biggest regrets and moments of failure in life was in 16. Right now he gets his get back. LSU faithful is cool with it. Like, hey, go get your Wildcat Arizona boys some love. When Coastal Carolina upset them on a Monday afternoon and it felt like the sport was being slighted, crowning a national championship during the daytime, Jay Johnson felt it. Like that age-old gif of watching Stephon Diggs, like watching the confetti come down. Like he's never lost sight of it. So to have him in this moment against a team that he knows really well, I think plays well for them. But you're right. Like LSU is Omaha at this point. There's 3 bars designated to their fans, even when they're not here. But now that they are, and you may have made the point to maybe not as talented as that 23 year. Not sure we're going to ever see as many teams that were. Yeah. But what's cool about this team is it's all been on the mound, right? Like it starts and finishes with Kate Anderson and Anthony Einstein, who we'll see over the next 2 days. But it's a different hero offensively every night, it feels like. Bear Jones is having his run right now. He was in a massive slump before that, and that's when Monster Milam goes, hey, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the weight. Derek Curiel, the freshman phenom, has been a monster at times in this series. So I think what's so dangerous about them offensively is it could be a different guy, and that guy might not even be in the starting lineup. Like Jake Brown is 4 for 6 in the College World Series in pinch hit spots. Like, that's insane. So it's this like, hey, next man up, stay ready mentality. That's what makes this offense really, really dangerous.
You talked about Jay Johnson here, Jack, too. And I think it's interesting. There's been so many moments this week where whether it's, social media doing its thing, where it's capturing these small little moments of interactions, whether it was him and Jared Jones at batting practice or whatever it may be, the first people to say something, to respond are his former players.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot just to the players that whether they've gone on to the next level or that was the end of their career, like they've all spoken so highly of him. And I think it just shows the connection and the true passion that Jay shows towards his players if you play for him. And so I think that's something to be said about why this team gets here. I know people like LSU was in the top 10 for the majority of the season, but I don't know if people were talking about them as much as we were used to, the 23 team or previous years, maybe just because people expected them to be up there. But I think there's something to be said about the way that Jay Johnson's consistency in coaching translates to the consistency that this team plays with.
Yeah, I can speak personally from this, like one of the most genuine, authentic people I've ever been around. Like it's very baseball centric in everything that he does, but it's real. And I think people can see through that. Like you got the opportunity to interview Trey Phelps, was a fantastic interview. Like he's a folklore legend in the Bayou, right? With that play coming in home.
Yeah, Trey Morgan.
You're right. Those stories don't stop with just the superstar, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if you're not playing for him. A guy like Mick Paul, who's on this LSU team, yet currently in the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. Why is it important to bring a guy like that? Like Jay said, he's worked his tail off since August. Hey, maybe the best opportunity for him in his future is elsewhere. But if you're a Tiger today, you're a Tiger always. And that is real. Like you can't fake that. And frankly, like we've all played for some knucklehead coaches that like when you're done, you cease to exist to them. Yeah. This guy like talks about legacy. It stems from his wife, Miss Maureen, who like has built a very like family cultured environment everywhere they've gone, from the West Coast to the Bayou. So yeah, very, very real dude, and very easy to root for as well.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for both of you on this.
Go ahead.
Before we move on, how I know it's LSU, so I'm not expecting a whole lot of this to be true, but do you think there is a hangover for how emotional their run was to this game, this series coming up? I mean, what we saw, we can talk about this a little bit, but the LSU-Arkansas game, I mean, you nailed it on the head, Jack, after getting like the duality of a moment there. Yeah. And how heavy that game was for both sides. Whether LSU was cheering, there was a lot of tears on that side for a lot of different reasons as well. Yep. I mean, that takes a toll on you too, the emotional part of this game, the emotional part of this tournament. How do you think they, I don't want to say respond, but, keep the level as high as it's been? Because that side of the bracket's been challenging.
Yeah, I'll go first there. I look at it from almost the other side. I completely see what you're saying. They had to win that game in order to set themselves up for the national championship. Obviously, there was going to be a winner-take-all Thursday. Yeah. But they needed to avoid that game at all costs because of how they utilized their pitching. So I look at the hangover more so from a Coastal Carolina standpoint, where this is the Cinderella mid-major G5 team that they refuse to acknowledge that side of this story. I feel like we barely see them. Like at 3-0, they've boat raced every team they played. Right. They played every morning game. They've had a ton of days off. Jacob Morrison on the elevator told D1 Baseball's Aaron Fitt, like, with all due respect to Omaha, I didn't come to go to the zoo twice, like, and see the sights and sounds. Like I came to like win a championship. And they barely seen the field. Yeah. My worry is more so like, do they potentially have a hangover just because they haven't been out there?
Great point.
Versus LSU, who like they get their aces, right? They get Anderson game 1, Einstein game 2, and that's a recipe for success. So like they had to have that win. So there's a level of like, I've gotta get it. Thursday, I'm sure practice was like probably nice and easy, and then it was back to work yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I think with that adrenaline definitely comes emotions and probably some lost sleep for a lot of those guys, but I would agree with you, Jack. Like, I think if anything, this would just fuel this LSU team, knowing that they're going to have their best 1-2 punch available for the finals. And also, they get an extra day off too, whereas they would have had to scrap to find a way to beat that Arkansas team. And who knows what would have happened. But I think it's going to end up being a good thing for LSU. But it is a great point because it is emotional. And, I mean, there are expectations when you do something like that. And the emotions are flying high, so it'll be interesting to see how they respond here against Coastal Carolina. But I want to touch on Arkansas too a little bit and their season ending, just the run that they went on and how Van Horn spoke about his team. Obviously, we saw the emotions from Charles Davion and how his teammates embraced him afterwards. But I think that the end of that game showed so much sportsmanship between both sides, and we have a picture that was taken by our Brandon Tiedemann of Derek Curiel going up to Charles Davlin in left field and like kind of just patting him on the back. And, maybe he said something to him, I don't know. But before he went and celebrated with his team to go to the finals, he's taking a moment to just say like, hey, you're okay, to this kid who obviously probably had the worst play of his life and is going to probably think about this for a long time afterwards. But I don't know, like how cool was that to see that sportsmanship between both those teams and especially the Arkansas side?
Do you want to go first? I can go first. I don't care.
Go for it. I'm still experiencing the trauma from the other night, so
Yeah.
I'd love for you to unravel it first.
I just genuinely don't know if I've ever experienced a moment quite like that in person, where the emotions for both sides were drastically different, but almost equally as heavy, where you feel absolutely crushed for Charles Davalon because he had an insane season. Like we heard Coach Van Horn say this, like, we are not here without you. And unfortunately, I don't know how much of this season he's going to remember because this is going to weigh on him for so long. But to watch the way his team immediately ran to left field and to watch his teammates not let him have a single moment alone afterwards. And mind you, like we are all going to point to that play, but that's not the reason why Arkansas lost, right? Like there's so many other things that lead up to that moment anyway. But to see everyone rally around that moment, and I think to hear Coach Van Horn talk about him as highly as he did, and mind you, Jack and I were standing out there for a while because there was this moment where you're like, I want to watch this and experience this as a fan of the sport and see how these teams are rallying around one another and experiencing this kind of emotion. And I didn't want to get in the way. Like I was just standing by LSU's dugout, just trying to observe. I didn't want to stand in front of parents. Like I just wanted to be out of the way, but you almost couldn't pull yourself away. And so every single thing that Coach Van Horn said in that press conference, I watched with my own two eyes. Like there was nothing fake about that. You know, the way he walked up to Charles in the dugout afterwards and pointed at his jersey and grabbed his jersey. And I saw Charles say, I'm sorry. And he literally gave him like a point in the chest, grabbed him. Other assistant coaches came up and literally picked him up. And I just think the love that you can witness in those moments is the most powerful thing about why we like this tournament. And I haven't even gotten to the tears that we saw on LSU's side. You know, you had Jared Jones, who was struggling immensely. And this is their guy this year who's just come to the top for this team. And he sprints to his parents and he's sobbing and his parents are sobbing. So I don't know. There was everything about that game that as much as it like broke your heart and you wanted to be excited for LSU in that moment, I don't know. Like you said, it's still, you don't know how to feel. But I think that's kind of why it encompassed everything we love about this sport and this tournament because it made you feel all of those things at once.
Yeah, it was the duality of a moment, especially when you have kids run the bases right after, and what at first was like a joke, like, all right, who thought this was a good idea?
For sure.
It became kind of beautiful as you watch 6 or 7 guys mull around the Arkansas dugout, terrified to leave what will be the final time they potentially ever play a baseball game. You're watching 10, 12, 13-year-olds come onto a baseball field, dreaming of one day being in that dugout. And it became a moment of perspective, not only for those guys in the field, but as reporters to be able to go, all right, like, how do I become a better storyteller and craft and build a craft? And you watch this moment and you go, dude, what we just witnessed was trauma. Like, I've heard a lot of the things. And what was also cool was seeing social media's response and understanding, like, hey, let's put our arms around this kid really quick. I'm going to give you 1.2 million reasons why in a month why he's going to be okay. But I think it's a garbage take because, like, you could tell how much this meant to him. Yeah. Not by winning a championship. I actually interviewed the kid a week ago, and I was terrified it was going to resurface. But then same thing. I think after some time and some perspective, you realized it was fairly beautiful. Charles Davalon told me after winning the Super Regional that they just wanted to go play for a national championship because it meant one more practice. Met one more week together as a team. And like he had never had so much fun playing together with this group of guys that even if winning a national championship, he would be heartbroken because it would be the last time that group of 40 dudes was together.
Yeah.
It far transcends winning and losing. And that is what we saw in that moment where like LSU is at this all-time high of highs. They're respectful enough to be able to come away from 35 dudes going out to go pick up their brother out in left field. And it was a really, really cool moment. I woke up with a pit in my stomach. I'm not sure if that was because of the beverages I had the night before to try to forget about what I just watched, or if I truly too was still depressed. But it was a wild, weird, eerie feeling for sure.
All right, guys. Well, before we head to the ballpark, expectations for today. Jack, we'll start with you of what you think we could see tonight at Charles Schwab.
it might be about lack of what we don't see, which is a whole lot of offense. 40-mile-per-hour winds directly in the face of the batter's box with 2 monsters on the mound. Just actually ran into Kate Anderson's family in the hotel lobby. Forgive me for being late, but that was a pretty cool conversation.
How's his mom doing? How's his mom doing?
Freaking out. Absolutely. did not give me the time of day. I got to talk to his pops though. Yeah, I mean, rightfully so, right? Like, you get to play for a national championship tonight. Yeah. He's so polished though. Like, I would be willing to bet if you talk to the kid right now, he'd be like, whatever, man. Like, it's cool. Let's go get it. And then Cam Fluke for Coastal Carolina. The Sun Belt Pitcher of the Year, Jacob Morrison, will throw game 2 for Coastal. Cam Fluke, if you ask draft scouts, though, maybe the highest upside on this Coastal Carolina team, but maybe across the board in the CWS. So he's a really fun prospect, fastball up to 97. It's going to be a long, long night for hitters, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw a stat right before this that Coastal is like 270th out of 306 teams, something like that, where they're like the worst hitting team against lefties. Wow. So I'll maybe someone can correct me. So I'll go find it. But either way, both these pitching staffs, I mean, Coastal is second in the country in ERA, and then you have an LSU team who leads the nation in strikeouts. Like, I mean, like you said, the wind's not going to help anyone, but we could have quite the showdown, you know?
Bad news bears for sure.
Oh, by the way, 103 degrees, if anyone was curious.
Yeah.
Forgot that small detail.
And speaking of 103 degrees, let's get Jack out of this heat. We're going to wrap up the show. Thank you for joining Keep It Real, and we appreciate Edwards Auto Group and their coverage of this tournament and sponsoring us to let us do all these great things. Shout out Sasha Durkin as well. She needs some Gatorade. That's what she needs right now.
Yeah, she runs the show.
There you go.
Body Armor. Take care of Sasha. She's the best in the business. Let's make this happen.
Sponsorship. Sasha. Let's go.